What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my builds guide and unit review for Arion, our latest Grandeur Battle unit, who's an amazing free-to-play unit because of the utility that he brings. So he's a Lance Flyer and we have a lot of Grandeur Battle Lance Flyers, but he's definitely going to be unique because of the support that he provides. So Aered Gungnir is a 16 might preferred weapon, giving him IO shield in this weapon itself, which is really good for not running it as a Sacred Seal. So he's not going to be bothered by the flyer effective damage, and because of his high defense he can easily take on many of the archers, and then it also gives him +3 defense. At start of turn, if he's at or above 25% HP, then he can give himself and the flying allies within 2 spaces +6 attack and defense buff and the charged status. So this is going to be a bit reminiscent of Legendary Hinoka with her rallying cry. And this is really good to have on a free-to-play unit because you can increase the mobility of your flying units while also running guidance or soaring guidance in your slot C, which is something that Legendary Hinoka cannot really do. But still, at the end of the day, Legendary Hinoka is going to be an insane nuke who also gives the special charges status at the same time, and who can kill so many of the far save tanks and be really annoying with her fire sweep effect. So Arion is going to be a lot more support oriented compared to Legendary Hinoka, who's going to be nuking really hard. But again, having this on a free-to-play unit does open up some nice options and it does make him unique. And even if you're a free-to-play player, you probably have flying units in your barracks that could appreciate the charge status. And we did get Brave Gullwig in the Chooser Legends, which many people did spark or pick as the free summon. So this is going to be helping the flyers a lot, but keep in mind that the charge status is basically giving you the warping. So it can be stopped by Gatekeeper and Legendary Mirror, so you have to watch out for those units. So charge status can be really helpful with many of the aggressive plays with flyers, and then with the weapon he's also able to give himself the +5 to all of his stats and also guaranteed follow-up attack, which helps him because he's not the fastest unit. So having guaranteed follow-up attack is good to have in the weapon, and he can finally get true damage based on 15% of his defense, which is already pretty high at base 46 with a super boon. So this is going to be helping him do more damage along with giving the support to his flying allies. And this kind of weapon does go well with Arion's stats because he does have the bulk to frontline many of the threats with the help of Guard Bearing 4 or Gambit 4, which is something that Legendary Hinoka cannot really do. So even though he's a free-to-play unit, he can function in many of the competitive game modes. And then for his kit, he does have Attack Defense Catch 3 at 4-star, which is pretty good to have, and then Wyvern Flight 3 at 5-star. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the flight skills because it does take the visible check to your speed first, and then it also takes the visible defense for the debuffs in the combat. So the visible checks can be annoying when you can just have the damage reduction from Guard Bearing and Gambit and also get the true damage. And even if Wyvern Flight 4 comes out, and even if like he does have the stats for that, I think that ultimately those skills are going to be better. So unless Wyvern Flight 4 has something drastically different, like maybe, true damage reduction or something like that, I don't think that is going to be changing because Guard Bearing 4 and Gambit are such amazing skills for the flyers and they're so easy to use without any kind of visible checks like these flight skills. Overall, I think that Arion is an amazing free-to-play unit that can be useful to free-to-play players for any kind of game mode. And even if you're not free-to-play and if you don't really have Legendary Hinoka, then he can provide that charge status for your flying allies, which can be really helpful in many of the game modes, including the competitive game modes like Aether Raids Offense and in Summoner Duels. And in Aether Raids Offense, you can actually use him in every season if you're using someone like Brave Gullwig and you want to have that charged status, because Legendary Hinoka, being a fire legendary unit, cannot really be used in every single season. And he's one of those units who can just be upgraded to 5-star, and even if you're not going to be investing very heavily into him, he can still provide you value in stuff like Arena Assault, Resonant Battles, and Limited Battles just because of his weapon. So I do think that he's an amazing free-to-play unit with a good niche, and he can be useful in pretty much every game mode. And in the competitive game modes, being able to give the charge status and being able to run Guidance 4 or Soaring Guidance in a slot C simultaneously is definitely pretty amazing. But still, like in Summoner Duels, he's going to be facing competition from many of the units because that's a really cutthroat game mode, but he can still work out at that kind of max investment if you give him a lot of these skills that make him shine. Now, if you don't really use too many flyers, or if you don't really have too many good flyers that can take advantage of these charge status, then I could understand if you don't really want to invest in him. And if you already use Legendary Hinoka in something like Summoner Duels and in Aether Raids Defense, then you might not really need him too much for the charge status, but still, having him around can be helpful for Arena Assault, where you could both use like Legendary Hinoka and Arion. And even in Summoner Duels S, if you really want to have the charge status on like 2 teams, then I guess you could use him, but he's definitely going to be taking a lot of investment for that game mode to function as a frontliner there. And there's also the fact that we have a lot of lance flyers and many people have invested in them already. Like Summer Mail Shez is also another really good lance flyer where he doesn't really provide you that kind of support, but he's still really good in the combat because of the things that his weapon brings. So if you're already building up a lot of lance flyers, or if you've already built them up, then it could also be another reason. If you're going to be upgrading him and just using him at Unmerged, then he can just be the charge bot for your flying teams, and he can run speed resistance link and have reposition at the same time so that he can buff up all stats of your flying allies and also provide them even more support with something like goat flyers. And for the mobility, you could run flyer formation if you want to, but he can even run attack defense cash 3 in the Sacred Seal so that he can have a better combat. So this is the budget Arion build that he can run if you don't really want to invest in him with like merges and many of the expensive skills, because he can definitely run many of the expensive skills really well. So if you're going to be plus in merging him, and if you only have something like Guard Bearing 4 or Gambit 4, then you can run the Neotrace build with the double cat skill. And attack defense rain is also something that you can get from the divine codes. And if you're on like ultra budget and if you just cannot have access to a Neotrace skill, then you can just run hit and run and a slot B as a very cheap skill, and that could still work out fine. Keep in mind that he does get the charge status himself, so the counter remaining doesn't really work the best with the warping, so you can only retreat one space if you do use the warping movement of charge. And if you're going to be investing even more into him, then I definitely think that giving him guidance 4 or soaring guidance is the way to go so that he can have even more support. And guard bearing 4 is also something that you can run if you do want to run a lower cooldown special like Bonfire, and attack defense catch 4 is pretty good skill that you can also run on him. Now there are definitely a couple of other builds that you can run from the divine codes, like Sturdy Surge build that is just dedicated to the player phase, but I like having mixed phase options on someone like Arion because he can not only function and nuke in the player phase but also tank hard in the enemy phase with his physical bulk. So I definitely like having guard bearing 4, which can also provide you the damage reduction in the player phase. So guard bearing 4 is going to be helping him a lot for tanking and functioning as a frontliner. And then you can also run Gambit 4 on him with a high cooldown special like Aether or Miracle. And this is going to be giving you 50% damage reduction always, and also 15 true damage per hit. So that is really good with the true damage that he already gets from his weapon. And he can even run the Clash skill because he does have the charge status. So it's not really all that hard to make use of the Clash skill. And again, it's a mixed phase option, so it does work out pretty well on him. Gambit is going to be another expensive skill, but honestly, guard bearing 4 and Gambit are the best lobby options for him because he really wants to get that damage reduction, and in the case of Gambit, he can also get the true damage. If you're going to be using him in Aether Raids offense, then you can certainly use him with someone like Brave Gulvig, and she can appreciate the charge status and not be bothered by the gravity effect that she can inflict on herself. So it is going to be helping you with the hit and run shenanigans with flying units, and Brave Gulvig is definitely one of those units which a lot of people use, and he can easily be run in every single season. So he can definitely function as a good flyer support, and both of these seasons have flying mythics that can take advantage of the charge status and also the soaring guidance, which you can give to him if you really want to use him at like high investment in Aether Raids offense, but like just the charge status itself is enough many times if you're going to be running him on a budget. So you can definitely try him on a budget first and then give him the fodder if you really want to use him with someone like Brave Gulvig or many of the flying hit and run units. And even though I did say that guard bearing 4 and Gambit 4 are his best lobby options, I do think that in Aether Raids offense, the Neotrace skill will be helpful for the hit and run teams just for positioning, so you can run that. And like I said, even on like a budget, he can function as a really good support unit. And then he can also be used in Summoner Duels where he can function as a frontliner with Gambit 4 and Miracle, and you can pre-charge Gambit with many of the support units, or if you have something like Secret Maneuver, Captain skill available, and there he's going to be running Gambit 4 for the 50% damage reduction and Soaring Guidance to double down on the flyer support. And Guidance 4 is also an option, but usually with Arion and Summoner Duels, you're going to be using the other flying units as well. And a lot of the maps are just flyer favored, so he's going to be having a pretty good time, especially with this kind of max investment and expensive build. He can also function in a flyer line in Aether Raids defense in any of the seasons because we do have flying mythics that can work with a flyer line, but you will definitely need some hard-hitting flyers like Windtribe Claude, Tea-Time Lysithea, and stuff like that. So, and he can be the bulky flyer who can be annoying to take down with his guard bearing 4 and provide even more flying support with Soaring Guidance. And this is going to be needing some premium units, and this kind of flyer line does have a higher threat range just like Cav lines, but it's not going to be without its weaknesses. But if you don't really have Legendary Hinoka and if you really want to use Arion at high investment with a flyer line, then this could be a starting point. And finally, you can also use him in Arena because he can score as a 195 BST unit with 300 SP passives and his preferred weapon. So because of the IO shield built in his weapon, he can actually function to take out many of the archers, and especially with the damage reduction that you get from Gambit and running Aether. And in Arena, Guidance 4 is going to be pretty amazing support to provide to other infantry or armored allies. And if you just have flying allies on your team, and if you have plus and merge some kind of flying dancer or flying legendary unit, then Soaring Guidance is going to be the way to go. And if you just want to run a more of a player phase build, then Attack Defense Clash is going to be the slot 8 that you can run with Guard Bearing 4 and a low cooldown special like Ruptured Sky. Hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, then make sure to share this with your friends who are trying to build up Arion. And if you did enjoy, then make sure to leave a like and a comment, helps me tremendously. And if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks down below or by becoming a YouTube member. And for more FEH videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as archers against Arion. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.